It looks like the left is going to succeed in completely killing an organization which, for over 100 years, has built up the character of millions upon millions of young boys into men as they grow. The Boy Scouts of America are looking to file bankruptcy as membership falls and lawsuits mount. Let's get into it. Leaders of the Boy Scouts, one of the country's largest youth organizations, have hired law firm Sidley Austin LLP for assistance with a possible Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, according to people familiar with the matter. Founded in 1910, the Boy Scouts of America says that over 110 million people have participated in its educational programs, which promote outdoor skills, character building, and leadership skills. So, just before we get into how this all unfolded, because they're not exactly telling the complete story here, I want to show you 4 other things which will tell you the complete story and how this all came to be and how we got to this point right now. I want to tell you a personal story. I was in Cub Scouts, and then I was in Boy Scouts, and I almost made it to Eagle Scouts until I kind of lost interest, dropped out, grew older, and all the rest. Boy Scouts played a very big role in building my character from prepubescent stage to post-pubescent stage. I remember hiking 50 miles with canoes in our hands and getting a badge for it. I remember going to summer camp and firing bow and arrow, shotguns, shooting skeet, going from point to point in a camp, a summer camp that was probably 5 acres in size, going from point to point with other young boys as we grew into young men and getting our merit badges. I remember sleeping in caves. Eagles Cave was one of the highlights of my childhood, one of the greatest memories, sleeping in Eagles Cave, and where our moms were with us a lot of times, and my mom in particular with her friend would go and sleep in a trailer because it was too scary for them in the cave, and the men and our dads, we would sleep in the cave. There was bats hanging above us while we slept. All sorts of memories from my childhood. It was essentially like a young man's military, a youth camp for young men who, very similar to the military. You would have to make your bed in the morning. If you didn't, you would get reprimanded. Being from the Midwest, we would sleep out in tents in freezing cold weather in the snow, wake up, we would have to cook, we would have to wash dishes, we would have to do all of our chores. And it taught us a lot of accountability. It taught young men a lot of accountability. It taught us to be strong. It taught us to be unified. It taught us young skills as young men. And now we're at this point where the left has succeeded in killing an organization that is responsible for the character building of over 100 million young men on this planet. Now, if we go to a CNN story here, it says that the Boy Scouts changed policy on gay leaders. This was back in 2015. Now, caving to the overly emotional, very small, vocal, minority, hostile left, this is what they decided to do back in 2015, and this is going to show you exactly how this all came to be, including a couple of other things I want to show you. The Boy Scouts of America announced Monday that it's lifting the ban on gay adults as scout leaders. Now they're facing a lot of sexual abuse charges and how they handled these things. And we go to the New York Times article, which says Boy Scouts will drop the boy in its namesake program as it welcomes girls this year. This was in response to many people saying, oh, that's not fair. The Girl Scouts don't do all these great things, and it's not fair that the Boy Scouts have their own organization. We can't have an organization that's centered solely on building the character of boys. No, boys can't tell jokes around a campfire without having to worry about girls being around. We can't do that. We can't have that because it goes against our beliefs as globalist left. And so this is it, the story from May 2018, the Boy Scouts of America and its continued effort to appeal girls announced on Wednesday that it would drop the boy from its namesake program next February. Meanwhile, the Girl Scouts still have the girl name in its namesake. The century-old organization also said that it would start welcoming older girls, open a door for them to earn organization's highest rank of Eagle Scout. We're just being so great here now, aren't we, Boy Scouts? Now look where you're at. Because you caved to the idiot left, you caved to the low IQ, small vocal, hostile minority, which doesn't represent most of America. As we saw, radio stations are now putting back the song "Baby It's Cold Outside" on the radio station because most of America don't agree with taking it down. Then we had the Girl Scouts, who are bashing the Boy Scouts now, Girl Scouts tear into Boy Scouts. Their house is on fire. The Girl Scouts of the USA slammed the Boy Scouts of America and their decision to begin allowing girls to join their ranks Thursday, according to a new report. The Girl Scouts of America are even saying, "What are you doing allowing girls in your organization? You're killing our organization, number one. Number two, you're caving to a very small minority of America that actually cares about being Boy Scouts and not allowing gay leaders and not allowing girls in your Boy Scouts. Very small people, very small-minded people, very low intelligence people care about that, and a very small portion of the population actually care about that. And we're talking sub 90 IQs here of people who actually care about, wanted the boys to start admitting girls. Quote, "The Boy Scouts' house is on fire," Girl Scouts told ABC News in a statement. Instead of addressing systemic issues of continuing sexual assault, which, by the way, could be directly correlated to starting to allow gay leaders 4 or 5 years ago, openly gay leaders, for a big portion of that, not for all of it. Instead of addressing systemic issues of continuing sexual assault, financial mismanagement, and deficient programming, BSA's senior management wants to add an accelerant to the house fire by recruiting girls. And this is the Boy Scouts tearing into the Girl Scouts tearing into the Boy Scouts there. Now, they also, the Girl Scouts of America, sued the Boy Scouts of America. So you can see how far the Girl Scouts of America are going to go against the Boy Scouts of America and how much they're against the Boy Scouts of America getting rid of the word boy, allowing girls, and completely destroying their own organization, which in turn destroy the Girl Scouts of America. A little over... listen, I'm not going to allow my kid to go into Boy Scouts of America. Not number one, because it's not the Boy Scouts of America anymore. It's not about character building for men and young boys and focus solely and centered around that anymore. What's the point? I'll put my kid in football where they make you run laps if you're late for practice and make the whole team do it. That's how I was in football too when I was a kid. I was in lots of different things that helped build the character of young men when I was a kid. A little over a year ago, the president of the Girl Scouts of the USA sent a searing letter to her counterpart at the Boy Scouts of America, accusing his organization of engaging in covert campaign to recruit girls. That campaign has since become overt, and now the simmering fight between the once friendly century-old organizations has spilled into the courtroom. In a lawsuit filed in Manhattan federal court over the week, the Girl Scouts argued that its fears that its brand would be damaged have been realized after the boys announced plans this year to drop boy from its namesake program while welcoming girls into its ranks. Quote, we did what any brand company or corporation or organization would do, the Girl Scouts said in a statement, to protect its intellectual property, the values of its brand in the marketplace, and to defend its good name. Now, my girls, I have 2, and I have 1 boy. My 2 girls are both in Girl Scouts. They sold hundreds of boxes of cookies. They love it. They go camping. They go and do all these different things that the Boy Scouts did. I know, I understand the activities are probably different. They're centered. This is this intersectionality seeping into general society now again. Just like I tell you the story about the mom pushing the boy who was dressed in a skirt on the swings right by my school, at the school playground, at the school my kids go to. I've told you many different stories of this intersectionality, of this like postmodernist. There's no such thing as basically under the umbrella of cultural Marxism, right? Applying Marxism, class warfare to culture and things like that. All of this stuff is seeping into our normal everyday society. There's no differences between boys and girls and all of the rest. This is a big problem. And the Girl Scouts even say, hey, we never wanted the Boy Scouts to start allowing girls. What are you guys talking about? You guys are caving to an idiot group of people who actually wanted this. Then what happened was the Mormon Church ended their century-old partnership with the Boy Scouts of America. I covered this on this channel, the main channel. I also covered a little bit about this on my second channel. Link in the description if you're not subscribed over there. Go subscribe. This was the largest portion of Boy Scout membership was the Mormon Church, and they ended their century-old. This was back in May of 2018. Like I said, I covered this on my main channel. They ended their century-old partnership with the Boy Scouts of America. The Mormon Church and the Boy Scouts of America formed a partnership 105 years ago based on the shared beliefs in God, country, and the necessity of teaching morals and responsibility to boys. Okay, you have the left who's always complaining about toxic masculinity and, all of these different things, right? This is what they set out to do. This is exactly what they set out to do. Weaken the men of a nation, and your nation crumbles. It says the groups became so intertwined that one of every 5 Boy Scouts in the United States is Mormon, and all Mormon boys were expected to participate in scouting. Now that arrangement is coming to an end. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints said Tuesday that it was severing its ties with the Boy Scouts and would design its youth programs that could be implemented in its congregations around the world. The decision, which was made jointly with the Boy Scouts, will take effect at the end of next year. And this was the end of 2019, so the end of next year, this coming year here. Like I said, my girls are in Girl Scouts. Fine, because it's for Girl Scouts. It's for girls. It's meant around shaping a young girl from prepubescent stages to postpubescent stages. There's also other groups for girls. There's the Adventure Princesses. There's all sorts of different groups for girls to join. How many groups are there now for boys to join, centered around building the character of boys? Aside from sports, there's no Boy Scouts anymore. It's just Scouts. They're going to die. They're filing bankruptcy now. Where is the group for boys? We can't have that because it's toxic masculinity.
I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle Now. Bill, if you give me $50,000, I'll go home. That's the statement from a group of Honduran refugees, marchers, whatever you want to call them, who showed up at the U.S. consulate in Tijuana, Mexico, saying basically, let us into the United States or pay us $50,000 each to go away. Bill, they reportedly gave the consulate 72 hours to respond to this, and they had another demand, which was that the President of the United States should also remove the Honduran president from office or whatever it takes to get that guy out of there. But it got me to thinking, Bill, $50,000. Not bad, considering the alternative. You know what it's going to cost to put all these people through due process, evaluate their asylum claims, keep them or send them away? Why not pay them $50,000 and send them home?
Do you know the word Danegeld?
I have heard it.
Okay. Essentially, what this argument is that Vikings and other murderers descend on a village and basically say, if you pay us this amount, we won't murder everybody and burn everything. And it's just what it basically is these people, these so-called refugees, coming up to the border and saying, "Hey, nice country you got there. Be a shame if something happened to it." It's extortion, and the problem with paying the Danegeld, paying the gold to the Dane to keep them from ravaging your land, is that once you start paying the Danegeld, the Danes continually arrive and they constantly want more, and this becomes a source of income for them.
But Bill, what they're saying is they want to go back home and start businesses.
Yeah, that's fine. Sure they do. Why didn't they write us a letter? If they'd written us a letter and said we want $50,000 to start businesses, they would have subscribed that in a few seconds. With a Kickstarter campaign, and I would have been a person happy to contribute to that. Microloans to South America and especially to Africa are the only actual solution for genuine change and progress in those places. But that's not what they're doing. So look, Scott, so much of my understanding of military history, of human history, and so on, is based on this idea of deterrence, that the ability and the willingness to fight a war and the preparation to overwhelmingly win a war is what prevents a war. That's what the money's for. We have the Defense Department, and we spend enormous sums of money on the Defense Department, although they're microscopic essentially compared to what we spend on social programs. But the reason we spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year on defense for weapons is not so that we have the weapons to win a war in an existential contest for survival. The reason what we're really doing is we're paying an insurance policy. We're basically paying $500 billion a year insurance to make sure that everybody else in the world understands that we're not somebody who you particularly want to pick a fight with. So, same thing with the idea of paying this hostage money, this ransom money. The first thing I want to say about this is, if they're willing to accept $50,000 to go home and start businesses, then this entire preposterous idea that this whole thing was about asylum is shown to be the lie that it is. That's number one right out of the gate. If you're telling me we're just poor campesinos and we fear for our lives and we have to have a place to live in safety and look at our children and so on, they're being tear gassed, blah, 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 blah. But if you give us 50 grand, we'll go home. Back to this living hell that we said was unendurable. It is an instant, immediate, absolute, crystal clear confession that the whole thing was predicated on using Americans' decency against them to get these people what they want. And since they didn't get the border crossing that they wanted because of some resolute action on the part of the president, they're saying, well, I guess we'll take 50 grand and we'll go home. No. Primarily because of what I said before. Look, if it were a one-case thing, if it were a one-time thing, in the scheme of things, the amount of money the United States, we spend about $10 billion a day. $50,000 is a second or two of the total government expenditure. On some level, yes, it'd probably be great. But the reason we cannot, under any circumstances, pay this money, under any circumstances, is the same reason why we don't pay terrorists for hostages. It encourages more hostage taking. The reason we don't negotiate with terrorists and give them millions of dollars when they've got these innocent people in a plane, it's, well, we can afford the millions of dollars. Of course we can afford millions of dollars to get these people home. But the problem then becomes, now we have set up an automatic teller machine. We've set up a cash machine. And basically, all you have to do is hijack a plane, take some hostages, and here comes your millions of dollars. The entire reason that we need to not pay this money is to make sure that we do not provide a precedent for other people to do the same thing. We need to create deterrence. You came all the way up here. You knew it was legal every step of the way. You were offered asylum in Mexico. If asylum was really what you were talking about, actual asylum, you don't get to turn down asylum for a better asylum. That's real estate. Shopping. So they turned down the asylum, they came to the border, they didn't get in, and now they want some money. Well, no.
Well, let's take this the next step, because he said a little bit more about this. And by he, I mean the spokesman for this group of roughly 100 of these people coming up from Honduras.
And you said he demanded, right? Is that the language you used?
I mean, demand, request, you've got 3 days to answer. It depends on how
That's
you
a demand.
So it's he in addition, he said, I know $50,000 sounds like a lot of money. However, it's a fraction compared to what the United States has taken from Honduras over the years.
Oh, is that right?
They didn't flesh this out in the article, but it sounds to me like what he's talking about is, in effect, what you would call corporate colonialism, where American corporations have gone down there and raped that country and paid substandard wages, virtually slave wages, and drawn resources out of it for use in the United States. Don't you think it's fair that we give a little back?
I did this calculation in order to make this point. I want to say back in 2010 or 11. I took a look at when I was. I did a video based on our friend Iowa Hawk's research. I just put it on camera. But basically, Iowa Hawk figured out with a $3.6 trillion budget that comes to about $10 billion a day for 365 days, somewhere in that neighborhood. And so I took a look at this idea of the United States. Spending. This is government spending. This is not the U.S. economy, which is far larger. This is just what the government spends, and it's it's $10 billion a day. I took a look at the national gross domestic product of Djibouti, which was the poorest country I could find that was not a microscopic island or Vatican City, which is not among the poorest countries. You'll be surprised to know. And basically what I found out was that the entire gross national product of a place like Djibouti is something like 3 hours of U.S. government spending. So in other words, the idea that we could go down to Djibouti, send the Marines down there, take everything, take their entire gross national product, take all of it, you could run the U.S. economy for probably 3 or 4 hours. If you took everything out of that country, you'd go from midnight on January 1st to about 3 a.m. on January 1st. And that's with everything that they make, everything. We take it all. That's how much it buys us. So this idea that we are taking things from the third world, that we are basically, going down there and rampaging our giant, mechanical boring machines which cut giant holes into the ground to extract the coal, and if little children get in the way, well, then that just greases
I think that's a false analogy, Bill, because you're talking about the U.S. government, and I think what they're really talking about is the corporations who have come down there and used Honduras as a resource pit.
Corporations have gone to Honduras. They have not gone with the Marines. They didn't go in. The very fact that they say corporations, Scott, means that it's a business
I'm attributing
deal.
that to them. I'm assuming.
Okay, well, and that's a fair attribution. I think that's exactly what they're talking about. I'm sure they're talking about, U.S. corporations come down to Honduras and they take the resources and leave us with crumbs. Look, a business transaction is a business transaction. It's not an invasion. It's not backed by violence and the point of a gun. A business transaction is a business deal where two parties make an agreement. Okay, it's not my responsibility to negotiate for your side. That's not my job. It's not my job.
But if it's our corporate princes making deals with their feudal lords at the expense of their serfs,
that is the problem of the Honduran people, and they need to get rid of those princes, because corporations are not humanitarian organizations. Humanitarian organizations are something completely different. We make humanitarian organizations tax deductible so that wealthy people or not wealthy people can contribute to them and basically take money that would have gone to the U.S. government and now send this money to the Honduran campesinos if that's the particular charity you wish to contribute to. And this is not only a good thing, it's a magnificent thing. If people talk about, the American foreign aid is so stingy, American government foreign aid is not stingy, but it's nothing compared to what private American citizens do with their own money all throughout the world. So to expect a corporation to go to some place like Honduras and say, well, what do you want for whatever the crop is? I don't want to be. What is it?
I don't know what they make in Honduras.
Okay, I was going to pick an example, but I don't want to sound.
Could be coffee. Could be radishes.
Sure, coffee. Let's say
know.
Coffee. Coffee. Let's go with coffee. So we're saying it's not the job of Nescafe to go down there and say, how much do you want to pick the coffee? And they say, we want $7 an hour. And Nescafe says, you know what, that's not enough. We'll give you $9. That's not Nescafe's job. Nescafe is not a humanitarian organization. I'm using Nescafe obviously as an example. They maybe have nothing to do with Honduras, so please just understand this is for the sake of the argument. But the coffee company or the corporation or whatever is not responsible for making the best deal they can for the other side. So if it turns out that you live in the kind of government where 2 or 3 families own all the land and take all the money, socialist Venezuela, by the way, being a prime example, where Hugo Chavez, the man of the people, left his daughter $4.3 billion American dollars. Entire country starving. Hugo Chavez's daughter, $4.3 billion. So spare me this talk about corporate greed. There's nothing that comes close to what a socialist will do. Fidel Castro had $800 million in his bank accounts personally when he died, and those are just the numbers we could find. So it's not up to American corporations to make a deal on behalf of the Hondurans. It's up to the Hondurans to make a deal on behalf of the Hondurans. And if, as you say, they have a corrupt government, then they need to get rid of their corrupt government. That's not our
let me make that our final
either.
question, and so we can wrap this up. We have been in the past queasy about displacing foreign leaders. However, this is one of their demands. Give us $50,000 BTW, remove our president in Honduras. Bill, don't you think that would help to stanch the flow to our border about which conservatives are so inflamed if we would just exercise a little bit of our so-called power, whether that be military might or just social pressure on Latin American states to replace those feudal lords, as I referred to them, who are crushing the people in their country so that the people would want to stay in their beautiful paradisical jungle lands?
A lot of times I have a flip answer to things because sometimes humor makes the point a little clearer. But I'm going to say this as seriously as I possibly can. If you really want to solve this problem for us, for them, and so on, the people that made this trip, by having made the trip, have shown themselves to be people of above average willingness to take risk, above average industry, above average ambition, all of these things. if you're really serious about this, rather than walking 700,000 miles or whatever the amount was, rather than coming to America and walking to our border, demanding to be let in for free, and then failing that, being demanded to give money to go home, and also demanding that we remove their government, why don't these people, who are clearly, on some level, the most energetic and enthusiastic Hondurans in the country, because they went to the trouble to come here, why don't these people go home? Why don't they set up a Kickstarter campaign? Why don't they find a way to raise money to legitimately overthrow the government of Honduras through elections? And if it turns out that the government of Honduras is not willing to have elections, then you are going to have to be forced to the same kind of recourse that we had ourselves found before we had $50,000 to give away to everybody who knocked on the door, when we discovered that we had a system that was taking our money without our say-so. We had taxation without representation, and we decided not to go to war against some tin pot dictator who was sitting in a mansion in Georgia someplace. We decided that this ability to have money taken from us without our consent was worth going to war with the greatest military power on the face of the earth.
And we got help from France and others. So what I'm suggesting is, why not get help from the United States to remove?
But you don't start there, Scott. We don't have an obligation. Okay, we don't have an obligation to remove the government of Honduras and produce a Jefferson down there. That's a responsibility of the Honduran people. If it turns out that the Honduran president were to open fire on civilians or things like this, then you might be able to say that there is a humanitarian cause at stake that might justify threatening
forget your
military
humanitarian
action.
compassion. I'm saying national border security for the United States.
That's a different issue. But if you really want to get border security for the United States, we've talked about this several times. The only long-term solution to this problem, the real long-term solution to this problem, the win-win-win long-term solution to this problem, is for Honduras and Mexico and Guatemala and Nicaragua and Venezuela to be places that you don't want to leave. And this is why I say with absolute genuine purity of heart that these people should be the beginning of a political movement to make sure that Honduras has fair representation. There are any number of things in Honduras, not the least of which is tourism, by the way, that could provide a great influx of wealth into that country, but it's going to require certain bedrock changes, and those changes are not our responsibility. And furthermore, they're not only not our responsibility, we are not capable of doing it. The big bad Yankee cannot come in there and create, Philadelphia in 1782. He can't do it. 83. He can't do it. It's their responsibility. And I think the American people and people like me would be more than willing to help them if they were to say, look, we want a stable government. We want the rule of law. We want a republic. We want limited terms. We want representation. We want the rule of law because we want to have a capitalist society where we can make money and start our own businesses and live like real people. You start a Kickstarter campaign like that, and I guarantee you you're going to raise some money. I'm in for a couple $100 off the bat. And this is an actual solution. But what you're talking about is coming up to somebody's door, trying to break down the door, finding the person willing to defend their house, and then having that person say, all right, give me $50 and I'll leave. No, because the second I do that, Scott, the second I give this guy $50 to leave my front porch, he is going to pass other people on the way back to where he's going, if he goes home, in fact, and he's going to tell them, if you go and stand on this guy's porch, he'll give you $50.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have kind of the reverse deal going here. If you give us nothing, we'll leave. However, if you become a member at BillWhittle.com for just $9.95 a month, we may be able to stay.
Don't give him any ideas, Scotty.
We may be able to stay, and many of you have made it possible for us to stay and continue this, to engage in these conversations that we think help to illuminate the light of freedom around the world. And maybe somebody in Honduras is watching this now and will gain encouragement from it because of the $9.95 a month that you pay.
And if there is somebody in Honduras, I want you to understand this. This is really important. When I talk about things like you don't get $50 for knock on my door and leave, that is the reaction of somebody who understands that the only solution is the courage of people like you to make the kind of changes in your society that the people like our ancestors in America had the courage to make, and which we continue to provide in terms of blood and treasure on a daily basis in order to keep.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are grateful to the members of BillWhittle.com who make these conversations possible. So for Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thank you very much.
All right there, everyone. Having embraced the hard left, the Boy Scouts of America are now considering filing for bankruptcy. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. First, I just want to give a huge shout out to our brand new viewers. If this is your first time here, I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in line to some really awesome conservative trends. So if you would, please smack that bell and subscribe button. As you can see, we are on our way to the final countdown to 100,000 subs, and it'll be an absolute privilege to have you as one of them. All right, this really is one of the more tragic stories I've had to report on, to be honest. I dabbled just a little bit with the Boy Scouts when I was younger, but it has, over the course of the last 100 years or so, become a staple of American boyhood. Indeed, over 100 million men and boys have participated in the Boy Scouts over the years. Historically speaking, the whole point of the Boy Scouts of America has been to cultivate desirable masculine traits in boys so as to be able to flourish as godly men in a comparably flourishing godly nation. It's a highly nationalistic, patriotic, traditionalist organization that shaped the lives of young men for several decades. It was also an organization that was deeply hated and despised by secular left-wing liberals. And this was infamously on display at one of the Democratic National Conventions when a Boy Scout troop got up on stage to lift the American flag and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And the Democrats, the thousands of Democrats in the arena, all loudly booed them off stage. And this was largely because the Boy Scouts did not permit, at the time, homosexuals into their organization, either as scouts or as scout masters. But then, perhaps in one of the most bizarre twists in American history, the Boy Scouts' national leaders began embracing the lunacy of the left. They folded to the extreme pressure put on them by to allow gay and bisexual scouts, which they officially did in 2013. And then they went the next step and allowed openly gay and bisexual scout masters just 2 years later. And then last year, they opened up membership to transsexual youth. And then this year, 2018, they've started to allow girls into the organization, which of course prompted the higher-ups to change the name of the Boy Scouts. It's now simply Scouts with no gender specificity in the least. And now it's just been announced that the Boy Scout, or the Scouts, are currently considering filing for bankruptcy. Now, the immediate issue is a number of sex abuse lawsuits that stretch back to events that happened a few decades ago. I believe it involved a single child predator in their ranks. But the problems, particularly the financial problems facing the Boy Scouts, hardly began with these lawsuits. As you could have guessed, back in 2014, all this embracing the hard left began. Enrollment fees quite literally dropped by millions of dollars. Membership fell immediately by 6%, which was the largest single-year decline in membership in the organization's history. And between the years of 2013 and 2016, membership fell by around 10%. Much of this loss comes from the loss in the Mormon Church, which was the Boy Scouts' single largest faith-based partner. Then when the Scouts announced that they were going to start allowing openly gay and lesbian adults to serve as Scout leaders, the Mormon Church responded by pulling over 185,000 boys out of the Scouts program. Now, while all this is certainly tragic, it certainly shouldn't be any surprise. Not in the least. I mean, the very simple fact of the matter is that the Boy Scouts are what we might call a traditionalist or a traditionalizing organization. Founded back in 1910, the whole point of the Boy Scouts of America was to train young boys to become men, real men. It's about building conservative Christian character and virtue by mentoring boys in the skills and practices of true manliness. You know, it's been noted that the term scout historically referred to one who was on watch on behalf of the others. The vision of the Boy Scouts has historically been to train boys in the virtues of obedience, courtesy, hard work, loyalty, patriotism, through the physical rigors of camping, hiking, swimming, fishing, first aid, and the like. And we taught these boys such skills and virtues because we believed that manliness, and specifically Christian manliness, was something that contributed inordinately to the flourishing of human society and thus ought to be emulated and aspired to. But what the leaders of the Boy Scouts simply don't seem to understand is that the modern globalist world, along with its celebration of alternative lifestyle values, is actually very anti-traditionalist. And so by embracing the left-wing liberalism of globalization, the Boy Scouts were actually undermining the entire rationale for their existence. We could actually see this explicitly happen by comparing the Boy Scouts' original handbook to what their handbook looks like today. Kathleen Arne over at the Claremont Institute did precisely this. She compared side by side the Boy Scouts handbook from 1911 with one of the latest editions published in 2009, which she found was absolutely fascinating. She found that while many of the skills taught in 1911 were still being taught in 2009, like, camping, first aid, fishing, and the like, in the 2009 edition, it lacked what she called the manliness, the verve, the punch, the adventurousness, the spirit of the original handbook. Brett and Kate McKay over at the Art of Manliness website, which is an absolutely wonderful website, by the way, if you haven't visited it before. I'll put a link down below at the bottom for you to check it out. But the McKays put together a great article that provides highlights from Kathleen Arne's study. So, for example, one of the things that was dropped in the modern handbook was any mention of chivalry, which originally, of course, was the virtue that the original handbooks trace back from the Scouts to the Pioneers to the Pilgrims, all the way back to the Knights of the Middle Ages. While the 1911 handbook has a lengthy chapter on patriotism and citizenship, which outlines the history of the United States and the meaning of the flag and a number of other elements of civics, the modern handbook simply glosses over patriotism with a significantly redacted version. And if that weren't bad enough, it now actually offers a badge called the Citizenship of the World badge, if you can believe it. The modern-day Boy Scout is actually encouraged to see himself as a world citizen rather than as a defender and protector of his nation. Moreover, while the original Boy Scouts handbook offered a number of references to great men in history for young boys to emulate all throughout the handbook, the modern handbook has basically omitted any heroes for boys to emulate. But what is perhaps most noteworthy is the way that the whole notion of good character has been radically redefined of late. The 1911 handbook simply didn't shy away one whit from strong admonitions like, it's horrible to be a coward. It's weak to yield to fear and heroic to face danger without flinching. And the honor of a scout will not permit anything that would ever encroach on the virtue or anything sacred and the like. When you open up the modern version of the handbook, good character has been redefined in terms of its inoffensive modern equivalent, which is a vague reference to progressive leadership and personal development. Again, the key here is that rather than shape the boy into an objective vision of moral manliness and masculine virtue, the modern Boy Scout vision is a therapeutic vision that seeks to cultivate the self in highly personal and private and subjective terms. Indeed, while the first handbook began with a lengthy introduction exhorting boys to embrace their journey towards manhood, the modern version, if you could believe it, actually begins with a section on victimization and how to protect your children from child abuse. The original Boy Scouts sought to foster virtue, while the modern Boy Scouts encouraged to think of himself as a potential victim. So all of this is to say that the recent announcement that the Boy Scouts may indeed declare bankruptcy appears to me at least to be the fully logical outworking of an otherwise traditionalist organization embracing the anti-traditionalist left. The very rationale for its existence is swept away with the organization inevitably going the way of its depleted rationale. Now, the good news for those of you who don't know is that there are several Christian alternatives to the Boy Scouts that are indeed celebrating and cultivating the virtues of godly manliness in tens of thousands of boys and young men. There are two in particular that you may be interested in. There's what's called Trail Life USA, and there's what's called the Royal Rangers, which is a Boy Scout-like offering through the Assemblies of God denomination. But it's open up to everyone, as I understand. I'll provide a link for each of the organizations for you to peruse down below. But the good news is that traditionalists aren't just sitting around and just watching these good organizations that celebrate manhood just go extinct. They're starting their own organizations to fill the gap, as it were, and provide precisely the kind of manly mentorship that's been so invaluable to cultivating godly citizens of character and virtue for the civic flourishing of our nation.
What good could possibly come from putting girls in the Boy Scouts, eliminating Boy Scouts? What's wrong with being special? The Boy Scouts now are no longer the Boy Scouts. They're going to be allowing girls to join the Boy Scouts. Here's my genuine question of the day. I'd love to hear back from people. We were all asking this in the morning. What's wrong with men and women being different? Yeah. Tell me, I'd like to see in the comment section, what good could possibly come from putting girls in the Boy Scouts, eliminating Boy Scouts? What's wrong with being special? I don't understand. I don't understand it when you had Girl Scouts, you had Brownies and Boy Scouts. What good can possibly come of this? Of course, this is everywhere today. USA Today. As we enter a new era for our organization, it is important that all youth can see themselves in scouting in every way possible. I don't know what that means in every way possible. I don't know what that means. I've never seen that. It's like Girl Scouts. Girl Scouts is a good start, but we think girls should be Boy Scouts. So Chief Scout Executive Mike Sarbaugh released an official statement. Of course, it's been met with praise by the far left, progressive left, and it's been met with praise by the Scouts, with the exception of the newly minted gay leaders you heard of from last year who have called the move, quote, a boner killer. So they're not thrilled about it. So new merit badges include the gender inclusivity badge, the new friend zone medallion, and mini condoms. Yeah, for when you throw up and you pitch those Congo tents. Seriously, or they just allowed the gay leaders in there? You know, they're like, oh, now I got to make a gimp brace with these blocking girls? And the Girl Scout cookie sales, by the way, have taken a huge hit, losing a lot of sales to the new co-ed peep show. But isn't it kind of ironic that the left today, and this is the progressive left, they want to remove the original safe spaces. We talk about in college how we need safe spaces. Now, everyone needs a safe space. These kinds of organizations were the original actual safe space. They weren't mandated, but male clubs, the females had clubs. These were clubs where people could bond without the opposite sex around them because they felt comfortable. Right? How many of them have we lost? We've lost fraternities. We've lost all kinds of exclusively male clubs. And by the way, boys are incredibly uncomfortable around young girls. There are certain things that they will do. There's certain information that they will share only in the presence of other men and male leadership.
I still am uncomfortable around girls.
Boy Scouts were developed. It was created around this concept that we're going to do things little boys like to do.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just like Girl Scouts had different things. That's why they sold brownies and Boy Scouts. My father-in-law joined the Boy Scouts so he could get his knife. As soon as he got his pocket knife, he threw it at another Boy Scout and was immediately kicked out. That is what the Boy Scouts he should have been. Yeah. But it's just to me, again, what good can possibly come of this? Because we've tried raising young men for the last several decades the progressives way. Look at public schools. It's exclusively designed for women, okay? Study after study shows that's why girls do better in grade school than young boys, but then boys do better on the SATs, and you see this discrepancy in college. So we're talking about in college how there are so many men who go into sciences and how men dominate these mathematical and science-focused fields, but guess what? They were behind all throughout grade school and high school because public school is designed to educate people the way girls learn. They sit down and listen to someone speak. Oh my God. The idea of toxic masculinity, gender-neutral toys, right? No more male-only spaces. They've slowly been eroding this for a long time. We've tried raising young men the progressive way, and it hasn't worked. But here's another thing, too. We're trying to empower women. You see this with the Girl Scouts? We're going to empower the girls by allowing them to join the Boy Scouts. But they had the Girl Scouts. We're trying to empower women by telling them to be just like men.
Yeah.
Which does them a great disservice. You're teaching people that they're all interchangeable. You don't empower Charles Xavier by telling him that he could be the Hulk, okay? Just like you don't help women by telling them they can be just as good as any man in any area or vice versa. This isn't about telling young girls that they're inferior. Right? It's about being honest with young girls. It's about being honest with young boys, saying, hey, listen, you're a young boy. You know what? You're stronger than your sister. I used to have it with my cousin. You're stronger than your cousin. You're stronger, so be careful, little Steven. Hey, listen, you're faster. Hey, listen, you're more physical. Hey, you're going to be counted on to protect because you're more capable of that. So we teach young men where they have certain qualities unique to their gender, which we're not supposed to know. With young girls, we should say, hey, listen, you're more agreeable, which is actually very valuable in many instances of caring for people and even in business. No. Listen, on average, you're more patient. You're more capable of listening. You're more articulate. You're better at communicating verbally. But instead we say, yeah, you can lift the weights just like the guy and you can go build a gimp bracelet and take a shit in the woods. Well, here's a problem. It doesn't just hurt men, it hurts women, right? So now we have this syndrome, what they call second adolescence, psychologists, doctors are calling it. Millennials are one of the most single generations in decades. And then you have women complaining that men are less manly than ever. You have that women hit their 30s now and they're going because men aren't getting married until they're 27. It's called second adolescent. Now, I always find this funny when they go, hey, you're young, you've got plenty of time to like a 25-year-old. At one point, you had 4 kids. You might have, not that long ago, you had 9 kids because you knew 4 of them would get taken out by a horse or something.
Or a tiger.
So you were just playing the odds. But now you have women after second adolescence complaining that they can't find a man with the kind of qualities they want. But that's because you, not all women, but a feminist society has bred manliness out of men. You scared them off with your browbeating and your pussy hats.
Ironically, too, when you breed confidence out of men, you create more bullies because now you just have a bunch of insecure men running rampant, not knowing what to do themselves.
Well, when you create false confidence, when it's not earned confidence.
No, when you rip confidence out of men.
Oh yeah. Well, you rip confidence out of men, and then give them false confidence for things they haven't really earned. Sure. That's the problem with it.
Yeah, and you have that guy in Canada that ran people over because he couldn't relate with women and kind of get laid.
Yeah, and that's what then he blames women, and then we'll get to that. That's reaching too far the other way. So women, they want boys now. They want, well, listen, let's just everyone's interchangeable until they're about 30, and then their biological clock starts ticking like this, and all of a sudden they want masculine men. Now here's the thing: there used to be a give and take. And I know sometimes people just talk about the good old days, and folks say, well, there were no good old days. And I get it. Some things needed to be improved. But there used to be a mutual appreciation with the complementarianism of men and women. That's what we had Boy Scouts. That's what we had Girl Scouts. And people didn't need to start a march, okay? Men and women didn't own different roles because they hated each other, because they loved each other, right? A man said, all right, I've been This is one thing, too, by the way, women out there. I hope you understand this. When women say, you don't know pain, you don't know what, being a mother is the hardest job in the world. You don't know pain, you don't give birth. Let me give you a little bit of context because we get a lot of emails from young men. Men, as soon as they are old enough to understand the concept of being a man, boom, burdened with the pressure of providing for their family for the rest of their lives. They know it. They know it's expected of them. Sure, women can work if they want to, but it's not expected of you. That is the kind of compression that is unique to the male biology. Now, it doesn't mean that women do not have compressions, do not have stressors that are unique to women. Back in the day, men didn't go out and earn for the family because they hated their wives. They didn't go down to the coal mines and get the black lung because they wanted to come home and tell their wife about what a horrible person she was. And that woman didn't change all kinds of diapers and didn't cook meals for her family because she hated her husband. They did it because they understood that they loved each other. And in order to make it work, we need to complement each other with our gender roles and our biological advantages and disadvantages. Now, of course, listen, some men developed PTSD, beat the hell out of their kids. They came home after a couple world wars, started hitting them with a glass rod. I get it.
We own that.
If we own that half. But feminists harm young men when they tell men, you don't know what it's like to give birth.
No.
When they tell them that you have no possibility. They create a toxic environment. I talked about this with the recent election, how bitch, when Hillary Clinton was running, would become the new N-word. Remember?
Yep.
We talked about that on air. We got so much flack, including from conservatives. Now, why did I say that? Because under Obama, race relations were at their worst in our lifetime. Fact.
Wow.
Now, you can't really observe it right now, but that's the Hillary Clinton syndrome. Remember that night when everyone went from being racist, who didn't support Barack Obama, to being sexist because they didn't support Hillary Clinton?
Magical transformation.
Haven't you felt that shift? It was racism, 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 and then all of a sudden Donald Trump's president, and it's pussy hat. And it's all it is gender war in your face. I can guarantee you gender relations are at their worst. In 2016, here's an example. We just talked about this, the recent Reuters polls. Young white men favored Democrats in 2016, 48 to 36. Now that's swapped, 46 to 37. That doesn't happen. You see the pendulum swinging hard the other way. And then you have a lot of men who don't believe in any of the hashtag Me Too campaign. Remember when we started, we were going, this is terrible. I can't believe, I hope that these guys are burned alive, the guys who are sexually assaulting women. Yeah. But then every woman came forward, and guys are going, hold on a second, I have to look at this a little bit leery now, because feminists have told us that we have to believe everything, and that none of these women should be held accountable. But here, and this is what is also important. I want to leave it on this note, unless anyone else has anything to add there. Men need to hold other men accountable.
Yes, of course.
You can't just pull the conservative version of John Stewart. So I do think this is corrosive to society, the Boy Scouts issue right now. I think all of it. Again, what good can come of it? Sven Computer was talking about this earlier. It really is about just entirely eliminating gender lines, right? Again, which is a big irony. Why do you need diversity at that point? But I don't want to be the John Oliver who just bitches about the things that I do think are a problem. I think all of us agree are a problem. Men you can do things. They need to hold other men accountable. I see men's rights activists who just bitch about the browbeating.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing. We can't believe that men have certain roles and then not own the responsibilities that come with them and just bitch about feminism, right? I encourage men out there, you want to start fixing this, and we've seen this with Jordan Peterson, with GadSat. We've seen a change with young people open to new ideas. Your goal isn't just to convert them. It's not your job to change their mind, but you can plant the seed. So if you're a man out there, guess what? I encourage you, men out there, to treat women well. Yes, alimony is unfair if you look at the majority of states, and a woman can take half and leave you and screw you. It is absolutely terrible. But the way to fix it is on a micro level. As a man, be a gentleman and encourage masculinity. If we're going to talk about toxic masculinity and bitch about it and bitch about what feminists do, that's kind of the syndrome we had with the Donald Trump thing, where people just came out and said, I hate liberal this, I hate leftist that. Well, I do too. But do you ever offer solutions? We see that from the left with John Oliver. He just bitches about and never, ever offers a solution. It starts with you. Encourage men to treat women well, to treat them like women, to acknowledge the biological differences that make all of the wondrous splendor that is lady, because you love them. Show them that you love them, and women, show men that you love them, and it's okay to recognize your differences. Then we'll start making some progress.